Hello students, welcome back. Today in this session we are going to study standard 10th science chapter number 6, life processes. Let us start life processes. First of all, what is the meaning of life processes? Life. In earlier standard you have studied about two types of substances or things, living things and non-living things. So first of all, you must be known to what are living things and what are non-living things. We can distinguish between living beings and non-living things by the characteristics which they possess. Some of the characteristics which living beings or alive things possess, but non-alive or non-living things do not possess. Let us see what these characteristics are. The characteristics like living things, they eat food for the growth or development of their body. Non-living things do not need food because they do not grow. So the characteristics are living beings take nutritions, non-living beings do not take nutritions. Living beings show growth in their body, non-living things do not show growth in their body. Living beings can reproduce. They can reproduce new living being or new species of their own, but non-living things cannot reproduce. Living things can respire, non-living things cannot respire. One more important characteristic is that living beings can move from one place to other. Non-living beings cannot move on their own. Now you may have question, which are the living beings and which are not? The substances which we can see around us like table, chair, buildings, vehicles, etc. they are non-living beings. Vehicles can move, but they cannot move on their own. Now, in case of movement, if we think of living beings are like animals, birds, insects, microorganisms and plants. They are living beings. All the characteristics which we have seen, all the characteristics are possessed by living beings. But one thing is controversial here is animals and bird can move on their own, but plants do not move. So can we consider plants as living beings or they are non-living beings as they remain steady throughout the life? But the researchers have shown us, and we are already known to that plants are living beings because the rest of the characteristics are possessed by plants, like they prepare their own food by the process of photosynthesis using sunlight, because they have chlorophyll in their leaves. Second thing, they grow up. Third, they can reproduce their own species. They have internal movement, molecular movement, structural movement inside of their body. They possess tissue structures, they possess cells, they possess different organelle structures. That's why plants, animals, insects, microorganisms all are living beings, and they show the characteristics which living beings possess. So this is the difference between living beings and non-living beings. Now the next question is, what are life processes? Life processes are the processes for the maintenance work or the maintenance job for the survival of a living being. They are called life processes. Living beings have to maintain their body. The body structure, the body functions are being maintained automatically, or we can say naturally. The maintenance work is done by a channelized structure of cells, tissues, organs, organ system and the whole structure of body. This channelized system or the structure performs different activity for the maintenance of the body, and these activities are called life processes. Life processes are very necessary for any living being for the survival of their species or their body. Now, which are these life processes? First thing is breathing. We breathe in oxygen and exhale out carbon dioxide. During this process, a whole system works which is called respiratory system, and it performs the function of respiration. This way, respiration is one of the life processes. How do we survive? How do we do our works? We need energy for performing our activities. Not only while we are doing some work, even we are sitting somewhere idle, even we are sleeping, our internal organs perform their activities, and for performing those activities they need energy. From where do we get this energy? We get this energy from the food. We intake food, we eat them, we digest them, and this digested food is transformed into energy, and this energy is necessary for our survival, for doing different activities in the body. So this is called nutrition. So this way we can say that nutrition is one of the life processes. Due to the process of taking nutrition, our body grows. So the other characteristic of living beings is growth. Growth is a very important characteristic of every living being. We know very well that when we were born, we were very small, and after year, our body grows. That is a characteristic of every living being, whether it is a plant, whether it is an animal, or any living being. So growth is a very important life process for every living being. During the growth process, our body or our systems perform an activity of repair. During the day-to-day activities, thousands or lakhs or millions of cells and tissues are damaged in our body, and they have to be repaired. And this repair work also goes on, and it's a part of the process of growth. It is a life process. There is one more important life process, it is excretion. In our body, due to the different activities in the body, many useless or harmful substances are produced which have to be thrown out of the body. That is in the form of urine, in the form of liquid state, and the excreta of any living being. That is, excretory system is performing this process. So excretion is the next life process. One more important life process is reproduction. Now what is reproduction? Reproduction is a characteristic of living being through which a living being can reproduce a new offspring of their own species, and it is necessary for the survival, maintenance and continuity of the species. So these are some of the life processes which are very important for all the living beings. Now the next topic in this chapter is nutrition. Now the question may arise in your mind, what is nutrition? Nutrition is a process, it's a life process, and to perform this process, living beings need food. Now what is food? Food is an organic material which we eat. Some organisms intake inorganic substances like carbon dioxide and water, and by a certain process they prepare their own food, which is called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is performed by green plants and some of the bacteria, and they do not depend on any other living beings. That's why they are called autotrophs. The other process in which living beings depend on other living beings, they intake some organic materials which we call food. Animals, birds and the living beings accept plants and some of the bacteria, which we call heterotrophs. The heterotrophs intake organic materials, and this organic material is transformed into simple form, and it can be converted in the form of energy which we use for our day-to-day activities. So this way the nutrition is a life process. The food which we take is called nutrient. So nutrients are the materials which are taken to fulfill the process of nutrition. Now the next question is, how do living things get their food? On the basis of taking their food, we know about main two types of living things. One is autotrophs and second is heterotrophs. Autotrophs, like plants and some of the bacteria which have chlorophyll in their body, and using that chlorophyll they perform certain activity in the presence of sunlight. They intake carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, water from the soil, and they perform an activity called photosynthesis. Due to this process of photosynthesis, they can synthesize their own food. This way they are not dependent on any other living beings. That's why they are called autotrophs. The other things are heterotrophs. Heterotrophs means the living beings accept autotrophs, means all the animals, all the birds which do not have chlorophyll in their body. So they depend directly or indirectly on the autotrophs to fulfill their nutritional requirement. So this is about autotrophs and heterotrophs. Now in the next segment, let us study about the autotrophic nutrition in detail. What is autotrophic nutrition? Auto means self-generated, automatically possessed. That is autotrophic. The living beings which automatically or their own way, they produce their food, they synthesize their food, and they do not depend on any other living being. These living beings are called autotrophs, and the process of nutrition is called autotrophic mode of nutrition. All the living beings which possess chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is a green substance which is possessed by the living being, like green plants. The other substances which are needed by them to perform this activity are carbon dioxide and water. Plants, they possess chlorophyll, they take carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and water from the soil, and in presence of sunlight they perform an activity, and during this activity they synthesize their food. This is called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a word made up of two different words, that is photo and synthesis. Photo is a word which is arised from the word photon. Photon means the energy of light. So plants get the energy from the light, which is photon, and they synthesize their own food. So the combination of these two words gives us a word which is called photosynthesis. And during this photosynthesis process, they synthesize their own food in the form of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are the materials which are generated in the body of the plant. Plants gets the energy from carbohydrate. Carbohydrate is ultimately stored in the form of starch in the body of plants. So this is the way how the autotrophs perform their nutritional activity. Now the whole reaction, the chemical equation performing this photosynthesis is like this. 6 molecules of CO2, that is carbon dioxide, plus 12 molecules of water, H2O. In the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, they perform an activity and they form glucose, that is C6H12O6. Remember, the molecular formula of glucose is C6H12O6. It is a kind of carbohydrate. This is the energy which plants use to perform their activity. During this process, some other materials are formed which are byproducts, and they are 6 molecules of oxygen, 6 molecules of water. This way, carbon dioxide and water are used up as raw material. In the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, they perform an activity which is called photosynthesis, and they form carbohydrate in the form of glucose, which is being used for their activities as energy. And other substances like oxygen and water molecules are released in the atmosphere. So this is the whole equation of photosynthesis which is performed by plants, or we can say autotrophs. This is in detail autotrophic nutrition, or we can say the photosynthesis process. Let's now understand what actually happens during the process of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a process which is divided into 3 steps. Let's understand what these 3 steps are. The 3 steps are: number 1, during the process of photosynthesis, first step is absorption of light energy by chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is the substance which is present in the leaf, and this chlorophyll has ability to absorb energy from light. So the first step is absorption of light energy by chlorophyll. Now what happens after the absorption of light energy? The second step is conversion of light energy to chemical energy. Remember one thing, the conversion of energy is very important in every living being. So during the process of photosynthesis, light energy is converted in the form of chemical energy. So the second step, again, it is conversion of light energy to chemical energy and splitting of water molecule into hydrogen and oxygen. Now the third step, during the third step, the reduction of carbon dioxide is taken place, or it occurs into carbohydrates. So carbon dioxide absorbed by the plants is reduced, or the process is called reduction, in the form of carbohydrates. Now what is carbohydrate? Carbohydrate is a substance which contain carbohydrate. Carb means carbon, O means oxygen, H means hydrate means hydrogen. So the substance or an organic material which is made up of 3 elements, carbon, oxygen and hydrogen, that is called carbohydrate. So once again, the three steps performed during the process of photosynthesis are: number 1, absorption of light energy by chlorophyll; number 2, conversion of light energy to chemical energy and splitting of water molecule into hydrogen and oxygen; and number 3, reduction of carbon dioxide to carbohydrates. This is the whole process or the steps by which the photosynthesis occurs.